Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
To record this last night, and I would have been in a much better fucking mood. But then my computer had to just be weird. I don't know. Hard to explain. It didn't work last night. It worked tonight. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
But
sometimes they be like that.
Don't worry. I'm just pushing through this after suffering one of the most difficult losses I've ever seen as a sports fan. That was like fucking
that's no
brutal.
Joke. That is no joke, man. That is like, I saw somebody, I was just on Twitter while I was waiting for my computer to restart. And I saw somebody say something like, good thing the last 20 years of being a Mariners fan has prepared us for this. And I'm like, no, it has not. No. Like that is.
I made it worse. In fact, it makes it worse. It makes it worse.
It does make it worse. I'm like, no, this is like the most tremendous kick in the balls I think was even possible. You're up 7-3. You're cruising.
You score 6 runs off the American League Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, the guy who has been your nemesis, right? Like, I mean, they didn't score 6 runs off him all year, did they? Like,
there's one other time they did.
Okay, so this guy has basically owned you for years, and you go out and, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, right? Amateur Mariners fan over here at HQ East. But like, guys basically owned you. You beat the crap out of him. You get into
owned almost everyone.
Yeah. You get into their bullpen. You're like, you got a 7-3, 6-1, I think at first, then 7-3. Okay.
6-2.
6-2. Okay. But then 7-3 in the 8th, right?
Yep.
And it's like, okay,
with your best reliever,
your best reliever on the mound, guy who throws like 108 miles an hour,
and that's not even like, his best pitch usually
is the slider. And then he comes in and he can't locate the slider's not sliding. He gets hit, and then you bring in your other good reliever, and his slider ain't sliding, and he gets hit, and like. So I'm like, I'm curious how you experienced it. I was driving to a meeting, and
go ahead.
I got out of my car, and like I had to walk into the building. So like I'm like, okay, they're going to close this out while I'm walking in. Everything's going to be fine. I sit down, I turn on my computer, and I fire up YouTube TV really quick to kind of check in, and I shit you not, dude. The video comes up, and I see the score bug says 7-8, and I see the dude who hit the home run. I don't remember his name. I know you do. Hit the home run.
Alvarez.
He's like rounding first base, jumping up and down, and I'm like, no fucking way. No fucking way. My first thought, I've got to be honest, my first thought went to you. I thought about doing a welfare check. So.
But you just checked Slack. It was kind of this ominous thing because they showed Robbie Ray warming up in the bullpen at the start of the 9th inning, and you were like, okay, if this gets to Yordan Alvarez, Ray is going to pitch, and in your mind, you're like, and Ray's going to give up a fucking home run to him. Of course he is, because that's what he does. He gives up home runs all the time. And then they were talking about this potential matchup throughout the inning. Sewald had the guy in front of him, 1-2, hangs the slider, base hit, and then, Ray's coming in, even though Alvarez is 1 for 7 career off Sewald, even though you have Eric Swanson in the bullpen, he's right-handed, but he's been really good against lefties all year. You got to bring in your goddamn starter on 1 day's rest who just got rocked in Toronto. And,
I was
and
going to say, who has not been good.
Not going to be good for a month.
He's been good.
It's just, it was just like, I was sitting there watching it, just like, I know what's going to happen here. Like, and I feel like it
because it's the fucking Astros too. Like, that's the other part, right? Like, the Astros just somehow figure out a way to crush your spirit and your heart. And you're just like, why does any good thing ever happen to those assholes? But good things do apparently happen to those assholes. That's all right. It's gonna be just like game 2, where it's like the comeback is gonna be so epic that you're gonna forget all about game 1. You're gonna laugh. We're all gonna laugh.
All right.
That's how it's gonna
work. So welcome to
welcome to Mariners Talk with Jeff and Craig.
Welcome to Podcast versus Everyone, a WSU podcast.
I know you feel better now, though, right? Like, you feel better.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I've been definitely been yelling to people all night. But
your poor kid. You've been yelling at the dog.
Poor
Amanda
comes
Ray.
Amanda comes home from work, and I recap the 8th inning on for her. Just scream like way too loud of a fucking volume.
I could totally see the look on her face right now, just in my head.
She was like
Yeah,
okay. This is episode 177. I am Craig Powers, sad Mariners fan, and with me as always is Jeff Newser, bandwagon.
Yeah,
old but new Mariners fan.
Yeah, less sad because of that.
So. Yeah, but to the Cougs.
To the Cougs.
So I was in Victoria all weekend. I didn't really watch much of it. My wife and I were having a weekend away. I already kind of like got away from that and watched both Mariners games at a bar. While I was waiting for her to meet up, they actually got the Coug game on at the bar. And I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't even know they could get it here. They had regular Fox. Like, Fox was just there. I think they had Seattle channels.
Nice.
So I watched it for like 5 minutes, and then I had to go meet her for dinner. But I was able to get on my phone as long as I didn't log into any Wi-Fi, because then they could locate me better. But if I was just on data, which I have, my phone works in Mexico and Canada, whatever. So I was using data, but I mean, it was hard. I'm trying to hang out with my wife, and it's you're watching on your phone, and then basically when I saw like the end of the first half and the start of the second half, and then like some of the third and early fourth quarter. So I saw all the bad things happening. But it was. I proudly, I was talking to this Canadian guy. He got the game on, and then it was 14-10, and I was like proudly like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I don't have I always like to pick the underdogs. I'm like, you should root for us. Like, you should pick us as a team. We're like, we're the underdogs. And then if he kept watching that game, he saw why. But what a fucking you put it right in your Monday after. What a frustrating result. Especially me, like coming, just look at, you showed the screenshot of the box score, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, how do you lose by 16 doing this? And then really,
usually it's turnovers. It's like special teams, and none of that shit happened. None of it.
Yeah, and it's because like penalties are hard. Penalties are so situational and important. Like the penalties are situational. When sacks come, you see 5 sacks, but when they can be pretty brutal when they get there. You see that Jenkins has an insane game, 184 total yards, including a ridiculous catch, like looking every bit of an air raid running back.
Yep.
But yes, you're just like, if you told me we're going to get 180 yards from any of the running backs, like combined, that you'd feel good about that. And But, USC's, it seems like from what I watched and the stats looks like USC's defensive line really gave the Cougs trouble. And that made it tough to get the passing game going. Cam's numbers weren't spectacular. He didn't make any mistakes, but not great. The defense overall, like pretty solid, like under five, around 5.5 yards of play to a really explosive offense up until then. So you like to see that, but Jeff, since you watched it, we didn't want to spend too much time on it. We kind of want to talk about how the season's going in a whole. But if you have any thoughts about it, why was it so frustrating for you as you were watching it, and then what can we learn from it? What can we take from it? Does it make you feel any worse about WC's prospects going the rest of the season?
Well, it certainly doesn't make me feel any worse about our prospects. I've been a Coug fan long enough that playing top 10 USC on the road, for basically ever was a no chance situation. It was you're going to go down there, you're going to get slapped, and then you can come home. And it really didn't even matter like how good your team was, WCU's team was. Like it just didn't really matter that much. You were going to go down there, you were going to get pounded, and then you could come back.
Oh yeah,
and,
I remember 2003 top 10 WSU team goes down there, gets their butts kicked by 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
So
yep.
Yeah.
And we talked last week about, sort of how lopsided the series is and, kind of all that stuff. So all that to say, to go down there and essentially play USC to more or less a statistical stalemate is both awesome in the sense that, we're every bit as good. Maybe USC's a little better, but they're not a lot better.
So I'll give the adjusted scoring margin from Bill C's stats when he looks at he looks at how his system would think a game went based on the stats was 6 points, not 16 points. Yep. So we'd probably feel a little bit better if this was 27-21 or 30-24 or something that maybe more what the game felt like it should have been, right?
Yeah. To play them that close statistically and then not really be in it at the end is sort of really frustrating, and I was way more frustrated by this than I was by the Oregon game. And I know that's the opposite of what a lot of people experience, which is fine because I'm weird. But like the Oregon game, as we talked about before, was like, just Oregon we were hanging on by a thread, and Oregon was marching up and down the field. And we were just really relying on whether the ball actually got punched into the end zone. Like it just was like, man, if this game keeps going, at some point they're going to break through. And that happened. So when it eventually kind of all crumbled, I was like, not that I had like a fatalistic thing about it where I was like, yeah, we're going to lose. It wasn't like that. It was more just like, at some point, this advantage that Oregon has everywhere except for on the scoreboard is going to pay off. With USC, it was sort of the opposite, where it was just like they don't have this advantage really anywhere except on the scoreboard. And it's like it just was that part of it, was sort of maddening. There's no shame in losing to a top 10 USC team. And, I really don't think that, I don't think USC is a top 10 team as it is. And I think pretty good evidence for that right now, or at least what we typically think of as a top 10 team. I think pretty good evidence for that right now is they are actually a 3-point underdog to Utah this weekend. So you got your top 10 team. You got Utah fresh off of, basically getting whacked by UCLA, and USC is a 3-point dog. So I think that says something about USC's actual talent level, but the voters think they're a top 10 team, and it's not every day that you get the opportunity to beat a top 10 USC on the road. And, we were kind of right there, and we just, it just didn't happen, for all the reasons we just talked about, whether it was the officiating, the sequencing of those penalties, the sequencing of sacks, like, man, you name it. It was difficult. I will say USC did impress me in one aspect. I really expected a very typical Alex Grinch defense, and they were not that. Like I expected sort of, extremely aggressive, maybe slightly undisciplined, really sort of playing for those negative plays. Their defense really sort of grinded it out. And I was not really prepared for that. And they kind of choked our offense out in the second half. I don't know how much I read into that, but some of that is just USC's athletes and that happens sometimes, but yeah.
So interesting to put some numbers to this. What Bill C has is, WSU only faced blitzes on about 10% of dropbacks. And while USC faced blitzes on almost 29% of dropbacks, which that makes the sack rates look all the worse when you're looking at WSU giving up a sack on 12% of dropbacks, whereas USC was only 3%. While WSU is sending all that pressure to try to get sacks, and it's just not coming.
And Cam Ward probably escaped another half dozen sacks, as he has been doing. Like, it was, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of a nice segue. Let's look at the whole of the season so far. We're halfway through. We're 6 games through. They're 4-2, which honestly, given the three very difficult games that we saw on the schedule, if someone told you it would be 3-3 at this point, which is probably what both of us had, you wouldn't be that surprised. You might have thought maybe we'll get one of Oregon and USC, and they did. They got one of Oregon, USC, and Wisconsin. They got Wisconsin. It's probably the one I least thought they would get. But yeah, so far they're on track to get a bowl berth. They definitely have enough winnable games down the stretch. Missing UCLA is looking a lot better right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I feel a little bit better about missing Colorado because now we miss UCLA.
Utah is actually looking a little bit more beatable than they were at the start of the season. So there's some chinks in the armor there. So the back half, this is a big one this weekend. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That will kind of, I really think, set the stage for the rest of the way. But we always put way too much importance on single games as they go forward. But whatever. It would be no fun if we didn't do that. But Jeff, I think it'd be kind of a fun exercise here to get into kind of some simple grades over what how the three main units are doing. We're not talking about individuals. We'll talk about the offense, the defense, and the special teams. So since you're a teacher, we'll give them letter grades. We can of course use plus minuses. I know you love those pluses and minuses. It's a good thing. Like, not everyone falls into 5. Let's give them just a few more. So let's start with special teams. This is probably going to be the most difficult one to rank, but I'd say, so if you're going to give A+ down to F for special teams so far this season, just some context. Let's see. In terms of kicking so far, you have Dean Janikowski is 5 of 7. But we have had some nice kick returns, some nice punt returns from Farrell, some nice kick return from Renard that really played a big role in a win at Wisconsin. So overall, given that, and the punting so far, we got 41 average. Haberer, 25 punts. That's too many punts. We'll get to the next when we rate the offense on that one. But so Jeff, overall, given some of that context, what are you feeling on how you'd rate special teams?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go straight A on this one. I know that Janikowski's missed a couple, but the 2 that he missed were against Idaho. He hasn't missed one since. He also hasn't taken one in 2 games, but he went 4 for his next 4 against Wisconsin, Colorado State, and then 2 for 2 against Oregon. So he's been good. Other than that little bit shaky start at the beginning, and then Heber's been great punting the ball. As you mentioned, gotten some nice kick returns. Renard Bell obviously had the big one that that changed the Wisconsin game. And then Farrell has been good on punt returns. And then, of course, we've got Thieker, who's handling kickoffs, and he's like just booming them out the back of the end zone, which is his job. Yeah. So honestly, I mean, for all the years we've complained about special teams for various reasons, right? Like, so derisively calling them, special forces over the years. Like, I literally have nothing to complain about here. I think special teams have been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. There's only been 4 kickoff returns against the Cougs this season. So yeah, been touchback city. There was one, they tried to, they were trying more to pin it in the corner at the start of the year, but I think they've been moved into just booting it straight out, rather than trying to goat them into a return that could risk a 40-yard line, just get the 25-yard line and call it good.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to go an A for special teams so far. They were a strength last year, and it's looking like, again, especially with Haberer now without an injury, is looking like a very good punter. I'm gonna go an A, and Janikowski really has gotten it together. But yeah, we'd like he hasn't really got a lot of opportunities lately, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, moving to the defense. So, kind of the points per game, 20, which of course there's been at least one defensive score that influenced that. But without including sacks, 3 yards of rush attempt. Overall, 5.37 yards per play. They've played a couple real good offenses so far in Oregon and USC. And probably like a decent offense in Cal, and probably a decent offense in Wisconsin as well. So they haven't been playing a bunch of scrubs, and so overall, given that in there, like, how are you feeling about the defense so far?
Yeah. So what's kind of interesting is that you've got some games that were really, really, really good. And then you've got one game that was really, really, really bad.
Really, really bad.
Really, really, really bad. And then you've got another game, this last one, where it certainly wasn't bad. But it definitely sort of faded down the stretch. We could theorize as to why that is. I sort of theorized, like, at some point they just sort of realized they were fighting a losing battle with everything, and kind of gave up that, 2% that you normally need. And that's sort of where also, Travis Dye in his, 18th year of eligibility, doing what he was doing. So I find it difficult a little bit to balance all of that, where they've been, utterly dominant at times. And then also not necessarily dominant. Right. So right. I think I'm going to go with a B+, and like that kind of feels like a little low to me overall, but man, that Oregon game, that was just so bad. and they just got absolutely just shredded every which way on that game. And if it wasn't for the red zone defense, which is legit and a really important thing. And so I'm not trying to discount that, but I'm saying, if you're relying on that, that's a little bit more. I mean, there is some skill there, obviously, but there's also a bit of randomness, built into that one as well. So, I'm kind of dinging them for the Oregon game, and a little bit also for the USC game, just sort of being unable to, kind of bow up towards the end and kind of try to keep it close. They weren't really able to do that either. And again, may have been legitimate reasons for that. Offense wasn't really doing anything either. But I think they would say in both of those games, they weren't really up to their standard either. So I think I feel comfortable with a B+.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a B, and just because is exactly what like you said, the Oregon game, it's basically that was on them as much as anything. That was just a real bad performance. There's the other performances have been good. There's just some things that, I think they could do better. You know, you would hope that they could put more pressure on the quarterback without blitzing. They do have good ends, but I don't think they've been not quite as effective at getting to the quarterback at times. And so that's been a bit disappointing. So I think some injuries in the back end definitely have impacted this grade, and so the grade could get better with Lee play. I mean, hopefully Lee stays healthy, and so that's what you hope for. I definitely think they have the potential for an A in the second half, for sure. You know, they've had some, you know, bad turnover luck at times. Maybe if they get a little bit better there, because that's a really big part. And yeah, they just need, you know, more lost plays in the passing game and more consistently. Just because they're so reliant on those negative plays, that they're so reliant on havoc, that when they go without it, they really suffer. So you're hoping that we can give them an A in the second half if maybe the pass rush gets a little better, the back end is able to give up fewer big plays in the passing game. Yep. That would be nice. So yeah, that's where their room for improvement from a B to an A would be for me.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that helps is you're not gonna. Maybe Washington is an offense on par with Oregon or USC. So you know that's probably the one, but that's also, I feel good about the fact that one's in Pullman. at the end of November. So
yeah,
you know, the level of offenses they're going to face, I think, is a notch down from the two good ones they had to see in the first half. So that's a good thing too.
Yeah. So let's move on. Finally, let's wrap this up with the offense. So offense, they really kind of sputtered out of the gate against Idaho and Wisconsin. Looked a little bit better against Colorado State and Oregon. Solid against Cal. Struggled again against USC. There's been some turnover issues at times from Cam Ward, and you know, some fumble problems in the first game at times. They definitely have seemed to be on an upward trajectory. Now the USC game, maybe notwithstanding, they're at 5.9 yards of play overall. You know, so given a lot of this information, how would you rate WSU's offense for the first 6 games?
Yeah, so I've written at times about how, you know, the offense was kind of on schedule. You know, it was on track. It was, you know, it was getting better week by week, and you know, those things all felt good. And then, you know, and then USC happened, and you know, as I mentioned, USC is sort of one of those where, like, over the years, I've just watched so many times over the years where, you know, we go play USC and we just get overwhelmed by their athletes. Like that is a very typical, you know, WSU USC thing to happen. And, you know, the inconsistency of the offense is a little bit maddening. I mean, yes, they were sort of on this linear improvement track, but they're, you know, within games, right, there are struggles and difficulties. The first half against Cal was, you know, pretty frustrating. And then, you know, of course they come out, they put, you know, 3 touchdowns on them in the second half and win going away. So that's all great. The inconsistency makes me want to feel like I want to grade them like down in the C range, but I don't know, man, it's hard to look at a team that's 4-2 and go like, and sit here and say the offense has somehow been really bad, because it hasn't. You know, there have been times when it's been ineffective, but you know, on the whole, I mean, the team's not 4-2 if the offense is horrendous, right? So I'm going to go with a B-. I'm going to take them just a hair out of the C range, give them a B-. Not quite good enough, not quite up to the standard that we expect, but also enough good things that, you know, the team has been able to achieve at a level that I think, you know, like you said, is, you know, 4-2. You know, you didn't make any predictions on the Cougs Center staff predictions. I don't remember what we did on the podcast, but I know that my predictions on the Cougs Center staff predictions was 3-3. So it's hard for me to be too down on the offense, you know, for whatever inconsistencies, given that, you know, the team really is in a great spot, especially when you look at the second half. And maybe we'll talk about this in a minute, but look at the second half of the schedule, man, there's a lot of wins hanging out there. So yeah, I'm encouraged, but there's definitely, it could have been better and definitely room for improvement.
Yeah. Again, I'll go slightly. I'm a little harder grader than you. And I know when I was a student teaching, I had a problem with that, but so I'm going to go I'll go with a C plus, just a little half grade below you.
Totally fair.
The C plus. Yeah. Just because honestly, it's exactly what we were worried about at the start of the year. What I think what has really held this team back is the offensive line play. And when you're talking about the inconsistencies, it's usually because Cam is under duress.
Yep.
And now he's made some bad mistakes on his own, but still it's usually because he's getting flushed out of the pocket. He's not able to sit and survey the defense. So yeah, so that was kind of our biggest weakness coming in. Now, running back has been a much stronger point, which that could be an issue going forward, but running back has been a much stronger point than I thought it would be. Receivers have been they've been good, but I think since Farrell's come along, they maybe have an added dimension that maybe they would look better overall if he had played the whole season. So in terms of room for improvement, I think Cam will continue to get better. It was encouraging that he didn't turn the ball over, given how much duress he was under that entire game. So if he cuts down turnovers and they're not playing such a stifling defense in the future, such a stifling front four that can just destroy your offensive line every game, he's maybe gonna be able to put some bigger numbers. See WSU maybe crack 30 more in the second half, but so far C plus, but hoping for improvement. So given that what we've graded them, let's quickly look at the back half. There's some things to worry about. First off, we have both Renard Bell and Nakia Watson suffered injuries against USC, and we don't really know when they're going to come back or if they're going to come back.
It does not sound good.
Yeah.
When a coach is like, they're out indefinitely, it's like, yeah, maybe we'll have them back for a bowl game. That's kind of that's how I read it too. That. So, which is not good.
Yeah, because we're talking about Jalen Jenkins looked awesome against USC, but can he handle a bigger workload and all that? He's still a freshman running back. Maybe he turns out to be a superstar and he just plays his butt off. But can he survive getting 18 touches every single game? 18, we'll see. They're definitely gonna. I think he's definitely gonna be the number one back, and they don't have a lot behind him. So
I think that's the bigger issue. Yeah. I think that's the bigger issue. It's what's behind him, right? Like, are you ready for Cannon Katzer to get, 25, 30 snaps? Maybe not that many, maybe like 20, 25 snaps, something like that. That seems, God bless him. And he looked pretty good, in the one spot where he got in, but that was, Colorado State. So yeah, I think that's the part that's more worrying is, it's not so much losing that guy. It's that, because Nakia Watson's great. And I wish he was playing, but it's like essentially you're replacing Nakia Watson with Cannon Katzer. You're not replacing Nakia Watson with Jalen Jenkins, right?
Yes.
And kind of the same thing at receiver, Renard Bell, same deal. You're replacing Renard Bell with, I don't know, probably Lincoln Victor, right? Like I think kind of that's what had happened was, Bell and Farrell were kind of taking the inside spots. Lincoln Victor had been getting some work outside, so he probably moves back in. Orion Peters probably gets some more play. That's all great. Renard Bell gave your offense something that nobody else on the roster does, which is just pure speed. His speed is not matched by anybody on the team. So you are taking that, we really could have used that against USC, right? I mean, just somebody to make you respect the deep pass. And so without him, you kind of saw what happened there. So I think that's the concern there with Bell being out is, you lose your one guy who really was a guy who could stretch the field.
Yeah, absolutely. No, obviously you don't want to lose anybody. But to have two starters be missing, that's going to be rough, and it'll be interesting to see. And yeah, it seemed like Bernard was coming around and getting comfortable with Cam, and then suddenly it's gone.
Coming off one of the bigger games of his career, right, against California. So yeah, such a bummer, man. I don't know. Maybe he can get an 8th year.
Yeah,
I don't know. Probably doesn't.
Football's a brutal sport, man.
It is, for sure.
So so back half, considering maybe those guys won't be there, back half you got at Oregon State, home for Utah on a Thursday, at Stanford, Arizona State, at Arizona, UW.
Yeah.
So
sounds like wins.
Yeah. So I think we'll talk about Oregon State in a sec. That's gonna be one of the tougher ones, I think, at Oregon State. I say the 3 toughest ones would be at Oregon State, Utah, and UW at home. And then Stanford, that would be an extremely disappointing one to lose. So would Arizona State at home in November be. Now, Tempe in November, I don't know. It's, I don't know. Jade Delora revenge game, who knows?
You mean Tucson? Yeah, Tucson.
Yeah, I mean Tucson, yeah.
But
Tucson.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, Tucson, whatever, Arizona, the state of Arizona. Yep. Visiting that is just a nightmare. Tucson, Jane Delore revenge game. That's that one's you never know. Like, Arizona doesn't look great, but we're not in a position to just dominate anybody right now. We'll see. But that Cal game gives you hope that you can beat those kind of bottom half Pac-12 teams. And then you're looking at you could potentially, if you're looking at coin flip game, Oregon State coin flip, Stanford, it should be favored. At Arizona, probably WSU will be slightly favored. Arizona State, WSU will be probably favored pretty solidly. You're looking at those 4 games. If there's like one coin flip in there, and then UW, I think, is probably coin flip. So if you can get Oregon State and UW, you could potentially looking at going on a huge run down the stretch.
Yeah,
but it's those 2 games specifically, I think, tell you what could be the kind of linchpin on if you're an 8 or 9 win team or a 7-win team.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it right now. I think they win 5 of those 6. That's how good I'm feeling about what they're doing right now. I don't know, which 5, but it's like, Oregon State, as we've talked about, we've beaten them 8 times in a row. I'm glad that Oregon State pulled out that game against Stanford, because I think that maybe gives them a little bit of a tiny little false sense of security, right? Oh yeah, we did it. I also think maybe there's like a non-zero chance that they were looking ahead to the game against us, because I think those guys are really, really, really tired of losing to us. But still, I think we're a better team than Oregon State. And I think, the results have sort of have borne that out. And then, Utah, well, Utah is not what we thought they were. The defense is not the monster that sort of we anticipated. They lose to Florida and we're like, Florida. And it's like, it turns out Florida's actually not very good, right? And then they go down, they get smacked by UCLA. Now, I think UCLA is good, but I kind of expected Utah to put up a fight there, and they just played, pretty terribly. So, and that's a Thursday and it's in Pullman. So I like those factors. Arizona State is at home at Stanford, right? That's another team that, we seem to just be beating. Stanford, looks bad right now. It takes an extraordinary effort for them to just stay close to Oregon State. Somebody was saying, I shouldn't say somebody, I was listening to the Canzano and Wilner podcast, and they were talking about how, I think they were saying that Stanford has lost something like 10 or 11 straight games to Power 5 opponents, which is just mind-boggling. And not only that, but almost all of them have been more than a touchdown, like not even close, so that's a game they should win. Arizona State at home's a game they should win. At Arizona is a game they should win. And then the Apple Cup, which of course, whatever, but we're all feeling like, hey, maybe, we can win that game again, after last year. And it's at Pullman. Yeah. Washington's offense is great, but the weather's probably not going to be, super conducive to whatever, Washington wants to try and do. So, I wouldn't put the odds on finishing 6-0, but I'm also like, yeah, I think 5 wins is extremely doable. I think 4 wins is acceptable. I think 6 wins is on the table.
Yeah. It feels good. It's going to be interesting. That I think this weekend it might tell us a little bit, or it'll just be, Oregon State might just come out real pissed. So let's talk about let's talk about like I'm feeling 4 more wins feels very right. Like I could see that happening and getting to 8-4. I feel very good about 8-4 this season, given what our expectations were in the start.
Yep.
And given the new staff and everything, that would be just a continuation of kind of like a level of success we've almost come to expect, but we don't really expect it because we just kind of can't believe it over and over again. But if we could do that, it would be
that's so true. Like we've been winning 8 games a year for, roughly 8 games a year for how long now? It's like, we're like, go look at this. We might win 8 games. Holy shit. Yeah, you're totally right.
So yeah, let's dig into Oregon State for a bit. So they once again had everyone feeling like they were over the, kind of over the edge, like that they've gotten over the hump. They've really arrived as a program again under Sir Jonathan Smith, but it seems like they aren't a ton better than they were last year, despite maybe some of their early, that Boise State win looked huge, but Boise State doesn't look very good. That Fresno State,
but yeah,
they're definitely not the Boise State of the past. Fresno State, not very good. They've lost every game since, including losing to UConn, since playing Oregon State. That Southern Cal result, our game might have looked like that if a couple things swung a little bit differently, but also Southern Cal, they were at home. That's different. At Utah, I think they got a little unlucky but seriously, what's the big concern with them is their quarterback.
Yeah.
Like they have just had obscenely poor quarterback play. And they've tried a few guys in there. Chance Nolan has been the starter. He's been taken, he didn't play against Stanford, but he was just an interception machine.
Yep.
They bring in what is it, Gulbranson? So I think he started against Stanford, right? Let me look at his game log. Yeah, so he was a starter. Pretty solid game against Stanford. So it'd be kind of like, it would kind of suck if he has kind of steadied that position for them for the right, because Chance Nolan really was hurting them. But so but Stanford, again, it's like Stanford's defense has gotten pretty shredded.
How much you gonna read into that?
Yeah, so is it? It's hard to say. When like he did 9 yards in attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Like that's impressive. But so is Gulbranson the guy? Who knows? He's also, I think, like a redshirt freshman, like a weird one. Like I think he's a 2020 kid, but he still, I think, technically is a redshirt freshman or whatever. But so he hasn't played much. So that'd be interesting. Of course, we've had success with one particular quarterback that hadn't played much against Oregon State, so maybe they're looking to pay that back. Early in the season, it was just like, oh man, how are they going to beat that many people with this terrible quarterback play? Maybe they've steadied it a bit. I don't know. It's hard to tell when a guy has only thrown roughly like 60 passes. He's done a nice job, like a decent job with what he's had. So it'll be interesting what Gulbranson has. Otherwise, they're still a running first squad. They definitely run a lot more than they pass. And they seem to just find like solid backs over and over again, which is kind of but I guess if you run the ball a lot, you're going to attract some solid backs every once in a while, right?
Yeah, I would think so. They look, the Gulbranson stats look very much like what you expect from an Oregon State quarterback, right? Like they're going to run the ball and they are going to throw off of play action. They're going to take deep shots. But with Gulbranson, when you look at, the way they won the game, right? So 56-yard touchdown pass on a pass that really never should have been complete. Okay. So let's just be honest about what happened there. It did happen. It factors into the stats. So, you can't take it away. But if we did take it away, then all of a sudden he's 19 for 27 for 194 yards, and his yards per attempt is 7.2.
And one
instead
touchdown.
Of 8.9, right? And one touchdown. And maybe even an interception if I don't know what that guy was doing, So, yeah, so he doesn't scare me. Look, it's funny. We used to have this, running joke at Cougs Center that, back when the defense was good under Grinch, whatever that was, 2017, right? And there was kind of this running joke that we would, our defense was so good because we kept playing shitty quarterbacks. And it was like, yes, that true, but also like a lot of teams have shitty quarterbacks, right? And so if you've got quarterbacks that, a quarterback that's maybe not great, that seems to be, when we've got good defenses, that really seems to be where we feast. And, there's really no reason to think that, Oregon State's going to be able to run up and down the field. It's not like they have this amazing, incredible rushing attack and you're just, they're hoping to survive their quarterback. It's kind of like the way we thought about Wisconsin. Obviously that's not what they turned out to be, but that's kind of what we thought of Wisconsin, right? Like, you load the box and try to stop the run and just take your chances with the quarterback. Well, we've already shown we can do that. And I think that that's kind of what, you're looking at in this game is something approximating that. So I love our chances defensively to really, really hold them down.
Yeah, their running game isn't particularly explosive. It's just it's a grind, and so they chip at you.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that Nolan had that Gulbranson doesn't seem to have is a little bit of mobility and the ability to pick up yardage with his feet. So that having Gulbranson in there, who, he could move. He has not so far. Having him in there, maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off the defensive ends, having to think about where he is and if he can take off and gain yardage outside the pocket or inside, up the middle or whatever. So that takes a little bit of pressure off of them to be able to rush quarterback. Now, Oregon State has not given up many sacks so far this season, only 6 on 173 dropbacks, so that's a good rate. So this one, this game is not, to me, going to come down the pass rush. It's going to be the lost plays and the no gains on running games, because that is where Oregon State wants to establish themselves. So if you can put them in passing downs, that is where you want to be. And so that's going to be the key. Are they going to get lost plays in the passing? I don't think, look for incompletions and short completions in the passing game, but I wouldn't expect a lot of sacks there. But I would expect, they have given up, 26 tackles for loss, roughly 4 a game. I could see WSU going over that since they're particularly good at that in the run game. So 26, so 20 in the run game so far. So they don't get sacked a lot. They have a pretty good stuff rate. Or they don't get tackled behind the line of scrimmage a lot, so their stuff rate is pretty solid. But I can see WSU containing them and making them grind and eventually leading to maybe Culbertson makes a mistake or forcing him into tough throws and things like that. I could see that happening. So yeah, I feel pretty solid about where the defense is at against Oregon State's offense.
Yeah. And then offensively, like that's the big question, right? Like Oregon State might feel as good about their defense against our offense as we feel about our defense against their offense, right?
Yeah. So Oregon State has got after the quarterback, not really much. They only have 5 sacks total on the season. And 2 of them are from defensive backs and 1 of them is from an outside linebacker. So that to me, that makes me feel better about WSU, because really where WSU has struggled is in pass protection. Their run blocking hasn't been always amazing, but it hasn't been extremely detrimental like the pass blocking has been at times. So I feel pretty good about Cam staying pretty clean in this, because Oregon State's really not looking to get after the quarterback that much. And so what does encourage me is that if Oregon State's going to stay back and play in zone, Cam was actually really good against zone against USC. He's been pretty good against zone. Find those spots. That would be encouraging. Now, I can't tell you exactly how they play, if they play a lot of man and stuff. I've watched Oregon State, but I haven't paid attention that closely to see kind of what type of defenses they throw out there. But, if Cam can stay clean, I like our outside receivers' chance. I like, even without Renard, I like Farrell's ability to get open, and even Lincoln Victor, if he's in there, ability to get open and get some plays in the passing game. Because really, when Cam has stayed clean, like he's had some really impressive throws. If he can throw without moving, because even if he's been able to stay still, and even if he's getting hit as he throws, he's put some balls in the money. So if he can actually stay in the pocket a little bit more, that's really encouraging. And like I said, Oregon State has not really gotten after the quarterback that much this year in terms of sacks. So that's nice. Now, if you're looking at running, they have, logged a pretty nice number, 23 tackles for loss on the season so far. So over 4 a game. So that maybe is something you look at. And also, again, a lot of those are from those aren't coming from the defensive line. This is similar to what was that the what game team did, was that Cal? Cal was the other team that wasn't really getting pressure from its defensive line, and WSU's offense take out a couple real bad throws, and they were pretty much moving the ball pretty well against Cal. So if they can replicate that, maybe this seems like a defense that's about on the level of what Cal is, maybe a little bit worse than Cal's defense. And so, but maybe with some better players, maybe they can have like higher ups, lower downs, whatever. So it'll be interesting to see because if they can put out that performance, if they could go, can they go 30 plus against this defense? I see it's possible. And, it depends on, obviously, the possessions, how much Oregon State is chewing clock with their run game and stuff. But I see that I could see them be pretty efficient against this defense if they, given how often WSU throws and how little Oregon State gets negative plays in the passing game.
So interestingly, coming into the season, the Beavers defense was thought to be the team's strength. That this was kind of the thing that was impressive, and that they were going to be better, and that the offense might have some questions at quarterback, but the defense should be solid. If I'm looking at FEI right now, his system ranks their defense as 73rd overall. Not good.
Yeah,
not good. And Oregon State is 58th overall. Their offense is 48th. So, not great, not great at all. And in fact, WSU's ranked 30th after losing to USC. So, FEI likes our chances in this game by like 10 points, 11 points, I think, something like that. So, predicting that spread. Also predicted a close game last week. Obviously, the margin was not as close as it was predicted, but we sort of went over the reasons for that because so much of that was actually really even. So their defense is not, there's not any reason to think their defense is all that special. Playing on the road is obviously challenging and difficult. So I think that's maybe, part of what we need to factor in here, but
I think even given the the state of their stadium currently, I think it'll be a pretty good crowd. They'll be hyped. They really want to beat us again.
Yes.
I'll one more other kind of statistical projection I see. Stats of War. Now, I'm pretty sure his numbers are missing the Wisconsin game because he somehow didn't get that in there somewhere. So a lot of his stuff for WSU is a little bit of grain of salt. He projects Oregon State to win by about the margin by 31.5 to 27. So a little bit over the Vegas prediction. So that's interesting. But we have FEI. Fremo's stuff is saying WSU by 10.
It's actually a little bit less. It's 8.3, but still
8.3. That's a pretty big swing when you look at the two systems, but also not including Wisconsin's kind of a big deal because even just that game.
That's a really big deal. Let's move to our predictions. How are you feeling? What is your score prediction? One thing we haven't done, maybe we could move for the second half of the season. Let's start doing our first half and second half scores again. You remember we used to do that? Yeah.
I know that's a thing you can gamble on. So let's do it.
At DraftKings.
Yeah, I also saw, I get like the gambling emails, like the media emails or whatever.
Yeah.
I saw for like the Monday night game, you could have picked who would be the first to get like a personal foul call or whatever. Like it was crap like that. So let's go with your first half score for Wazoo at Oregon State.
Yeah. Oh, you surprised me with this one. I hadn't really given much thought to how each half would go. I know you're evil. I tend to think that it's going to kind of maybe be a little bit of a cagey affair early. I think that has tended to kind of be the case for WSU, at least. Not all games, but, obviously Oregon was a bit different. But, most of the other games, I guess Colorado State was different too. But most of the other games, the other four games, a little bit slow-ish at least. So I'm going to go relatively low scoring in the first half. I'm going to go 13-13 tie game at half. First half.
All right, 13-13. I'm going equally cagey, but I'm going to go a little bit lower scoring. And I'm going to say WSU takes a 10-7 lead going into halftime.
Okay.
All right, now how about what is your final score?
Yeah, so bigger second half. I like our chances. Again, it's I don't see any real reason to think that Oregon State is vastly improved over where they've been. I think this year's WSU team is better than what they've been the last couple of years. So when you put those two things together, I think we end up pulling away. I think it ends up being something like I'm going to go 31-20. Like it's 13-13 at half. 31. Okay, how do we get to 31 from 13? 18 point. That seems weird. How about
you're going to go for it somewhere.
Let's go 30-20. Yeah, we're not going to go for it. So let's go 30-20. We put up another 17. It goes 17-7 in the second half. 30-20, comfortable win in Corvallis, which I know is completely against the MO of this series recently, which has just been sort of batshit crazy. The last 3 games have been down to the wire, knuckle bangers, but like, yeah, I like this one. I'm thinking we cruise.
Yeah, I can't, like you said, it's hard for me to predict like a crew, like an easy win in Corvallis. They just seem to get hyped to play Wazoo. So I think it'll be a little bit closer in the second half. I think WSU does prevail. Well, and I'll say it'll come down to a defensive stop at the end, but they do win 27-21. So 17-14 second half. WSU's got to get a stop there at the end, and they get it. And Cougs win.
I like it.
Yeah. So I had 27-21. You had 30-20. Both would be just happy. Either one would be great for me. So yeah, let's we'll, now that we've covered football, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about how the weekends went for soccer and volleyball, and maybe we'll look at some emails as well. I think I got at least one. So we'll do that when we get back.
Back.
Yes. So Jeff, before we get into all those things I talked about, I would like to know, what are you drinking?
Well, as we mentioned last week, it's fresh hop season. So I picked up, I have an assortment of fresh hop beers in my refrigerator. This one is the Applause Fresh Hop IPA with Bravo, brewed in front of a live studio audience, Craig.
I'm sure it was.
Brewed by Sig Brewing and Vice Beer. Collaboration. Let's see. We teamed up with the new kids on the block at Vice Beer for a fresh hop IPA that's worth its applause. Fresh Bravo hops were sourced from Roy Farms for flavors of candied lime, sweet fruit, and floral notes. As you might expect, the floral notes kind of dominate on a fresh hop beer.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely delicious. I love it. As I would expect from Sig. I don't know anything about Vice. You probably do. But as I would expect from Sig, it's completely delicious. So yeah, I love it. I wish I had another one. I should have bought 2.
I do not know a single thing about Vice except they're okay. I know one thing. They're in Vancouver. That's all I know.
Okay.
Vancouver, Washington.
Oh
yeah. Vancouver, Washington.
Like that.
Which is, kind of like on the back of being so close to Portland, I think has its own like nice beer scene in its own right. Just kind of like the spreading out from the Portland beer scene. So Applause. I haven't had that one. Sounds good. So I think I'm drinking a fresh hop again. I think it's probably like the 4th straight week or so that I've had a fresh hop.
Woo.
Yeah. So this one I am risking everything and doing an Oregon beer. So this one is, I know, right? This is but it's fun name. So it's Level Beer Game On, which is like a year-round IPA that they make. It's got like a Super Mario's Brother label,
Yep,
Super
I've
Mario
had
Brothers
that
label.
before.
But so it looks exactly like the same label that it always is. But on the bottom, they put Simcoe Coleman Farms. And then it was canned on 9/6/2022. So that'll tell you that it is fresh hop because of they labeled like that. So this is the Simcoe Coleman Farms one. It's getting a little up there in age for a fresh hop, but I just grabbed it the other day. I like I've never done a level beer before, so I thought it'd be good to do that. Very, very dank IPA, which no surprise with the Simcoe hops. It's very dank, good bitterness. It's a West Coast IPA, I would say, like, or at least a Northwest IPA. Those Southern California people protect that West Coast IPA moniker, but pretty solid beer. They say it is barn brewed in Portland, Oregon. That is some Portland ass hipster shit right there. But this is another part of a long line of the tradition of kind of towing the line with IP theft in the branding of beer. Now I'm not level. They're like let's theme after video games. Obviously, there's a million breweries that do heavy metal and other things like that. So I'm not going to give them that, but man, this looks a lot like Mario Brothers, and they're definitely trying to hit you with that nostalgia. So I poured it in my usual barley wine glass, which is actually made, the design on it, this is the Christmas version of it, is made to kind of make fun of that kind of culture of IP theft. So it's got this like walrus that kind of looks like Mega Man, and he's shooting cease and desist letters out. So if you follow my Twitter, you see me drink a barley wine, I always drink it out of these glasses. But so this is kind of playing on that. This is, I'll tell you, not as aggressive. I've seen them; they just straight up call it like Ninja Turtle IPA, and it looks just like Ninja Turtles or whatever. So this could be much worse. But yeah, solid beer, solid all around. Very good stuff. It's a cute design with like the brewer and everything on the side instead of Mario, all that stuff. Solid beer. Especially that it's nice to see a brewery kind of have one of their flagship beers be this style and not like a hazy or something. So kind of a bit of a throwback there. So that's cool. So level beer, game on, fresh hop with Simcoe from Coleman Farms, so I guess now we can move on after now we've feeling a little better. Had a beer. I'm getting over some of my sadness, hopefully. Just starting to look forward out into the world, knowing things aren't over, knowing I do get to go to an actual Mariners playoff game on Saturday and hopefully one on Sunday as well. One of our favorite things to talk about, usually because it's like lots of good news, but not this weekend, is the Wazoo soccer team. Had a rough weekend, to put it lightly. We were kind of hoping for a pair of wins, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that I was hoping for a 4-pointer. That's kind of what I was looking for, was beat Cal, and then get a draw with Stanford. That's what I was shooting for, and we got neither of those results. Walked out of California with 0 points. Lost to Cal. In that game, I did not watch it, but I looked at the stats afterward. There were 3 goals scored in the game. 2 by Cal, 1 by us, and Cal was ahead the vast majority of the game. So, we scored our goal in the, 88th minute or something. Like it was,
it was really late,
extremely late. Only 3 shots on goal in that game, and all 3 of them ended up in the back of the net. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. It was extremely disappointing result for sure.
So one of Cal's goals was a PK.
That's right. Yep.
But yeah, it's this isn't one of those that we've had time and time again this season where they dominated. At least it doesn't look like from the statistics that they dominated. And then the shots were even. The shots on goal, obviously 2-1, and one of those was a PK. So that's kind of, you give it that like a half shot on goal sometimes, but
right.
So so this was just, they didn't bury anyone this time. This is the match, I guess it was kind of 50-50, and when you give up a PK, that's how you lose a 50-50 game. And real bummer though, because it's a team that kind of middle of the pack in the Pac-12. It would have been nice to see that they could take them down even on the road.
Yeah, I mean that's if you're a contender, which I think they fancied themselves a contender, that's a game you win, right? Like that's not a game that you lose. So Cal's not bad, but also that's a game you should win. So really disappointed in not getting points there, because you knew you were heading to Stanford, and that was going to be a very difficult game. Stanford ranked 15th, but also clearly sort of has their sights set on potentially challenging for the Pac-12 title, as they do most years. They've won national championships and things like that, and so you knew that one was going to be tough, and it turned out, Craig, shockingly, it was very tough.
Yeah, I think this is really probably the first time all season that they got really outplayed.
Yep.
They if
really
you look at the only time. So, and the WC's goal, I think it was an own goal. But the box score apparently, do they not? They apparently don't list own goals in NCAA box scores, because it just says goal by WSU team. But Stanford 22 shots, 10 on goal versus WSU 6 and 4. That's we haven't seen numbers like that all season. That's just not been common.
I did watch that game. They were extremely tough. WSU was. They played extremely tough. They gave up what was a great goal. It was a free kick just outside the box on the left-hand side, kind of a bender into the corner. Nadia Cooper did great even to get fingertips to it, but that was it. I don't know that there's a college women's goalkeeper that was stopping that shot. Like, you've got maybe and I'm not trying to be sexist, but a man is taller, right? So our goalkeepers, you look at MLS, keepers are typically 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", right? If Nadia Cooper is 6'2", 6'3", maybe she stops that, but Nadia Cooper is, I don't know, 5'9", 5'10", something like that, right? So she gets a fingertip to it. Incredible shot, really not stoppable. WSU pulls back their own. It was a free kick. They did this thing that they do fairly regularly, is instead of playing the free kick from, and now this wasn't a corner kick, but it was in the same vicinity as a corner kick because of where the foul occurred, where they instead of kicking it kind of right in front of goal to get a head on it, which they do plenty, sometimes they will kind of float it to the back post and then just kind of smash it back across goal and try and punch it in from there. And that's exactly what happened. Micaiah Maness, was waiting at the back post, punched it back across the middle, and then Stanford, botched the whole thing and ended up in the goal. It was great. Definitely. I mean, like, sometimes with an own goal, you're like, oh, well, that was really lucky. I mean, that was one where they definitely made their own luck. I mean, WSU had lots of bodies in front of goal. If Stanford plays it differently, I mean, there's a decent chance somebody from WSU just punches it in anyway. So really good goal, 1-1 at half, and then second half, Stanford's second goal. They had a speedy little winger. Cannot remember her name because I'm not looking at the stats right now, but very speedy little winger. Got in some space, running down the right hand side, made a great play to cut it back. I believe.
So Lumi Kostmeyer had the assist, so I'm assuming that's who you're talking about as the winger. Yeah. Yeah.
No, Kostmeyer was the one. If she had the assist, she was the one who played her in, because the winger did the whole thing herself.
Okay.
like she ran it down and then she cut it back, and WSU's defender.
So the winger is Samantha Williams.
There you go. Yeah, so she ran it down, cut it back, defender falls down. She kind of gets around, then she bends it with her left foot around Cooper to the far post and just tucks it inside the far post. It was you and I watch a lot of professional soccer. It was a professional soccer quality goal, and that's kind of what they were dealing with all day with Stanford was, just an extremely skilled team. And WSU is really good. But, if you watch much WSU, like you kind of know they're a little bit more like a blunt force object. Like they just kind of bludgeon you to death with a lot of size and a lot of shots. And it's not to say that WSU doesn't have a lot of skill, because they do. But Stanford's skill was sort of on another level. And, both goals were like just incredible collegiate goals. And, sometimes you just have to tip your cap. You just wish you weren't, tipping your cap when they're playing your team and sending you back to Washington with a winless road trip.
Yeah. And so that was her 5th goal of the year. Obviously she's got some talent, already logged 5 goals. Yeah. So yeah, only one match this week for them. Oregon at home on Friday. Definitely should win that one. That is one you got to win. Oregon towards the bottom. Yeah, Oregon towards the bottom of the conference. They're not very good. WSU needs that win for sure. Got to get that one.
Yep, that's a really important one.
And then, so moving on to volleyball, let's finish
on a high note.
They had a very good weekend. So let me find it here. So they went down. So they got a sweep this weekend. They swept Oregon State on Sunday, which was to be expected. But the big thing on Friday night, took down Oregon, who had been 12th ranked Oregon, in 5 sets. And so that's what enabled them to then get this weekend sweep on Sunday. Really a big win. They've had opportunities for these all year, and it's the bet, they finally were able to get a big win on their resume.
Yeah, the Hannah Pukas revenge game, right?
Yeah, exactly. She transfers to Oregon.
Transfers to Oregon for her senior year. And did not make the trip back to Pullman. I don't know. Maybe she had a little injury. Not really sure. But she didn't play. And WSU fell behind 2-1. Came back, won the 4th set. Came back, won the 5th set. 5-set victory. Absolutely fantastic win for Jen Greeny and her program. Like I think Greeny sort of talked about this after the game, sort of contextualize it this way. Like you need some wins to hang your hat on, right? I mean, we saw this with basketball. It's like if you're trying to make a tournament resume, you really need something you can hang your hat on. And this was that for volleyball. So super, super awesome. Completely thrilled. Both, just for what it means for their season and to, beat the team that took the transfer of one of their better players. So,
yeah, I'm sure that felt good. And then to follow it up by just not backing down against a team that has not won a conference game, just making sure to finish them off. I'm sorry, Oregon State has 1-1. Just to make sure to smash them, and so now they're sitting at 4-2 in conference, which ties them for fourth of the conference. So they're sitting right there. So they're in a position down the stretch, if they can, log some wins, finish in a good spot, so now now they have one resume win, they can start building those and try to get back to, would it be a 6th consecutive NCAA tournament? This weekend they have Colorado and Utah. So this is a pretty big weekend because Colorado is tied with them at 4-2. They're 12-4, and then Utah is just below them at 3-3 in conference play. So those are in the mountains. So both on the road, Friday, Sunday. So big weekend, kind of a mover weekend for them if they can be successful and kind of move up in the standings. Be on the lookout for that. The actual So, Pac-12 Mountain for Colorado, but otherwise Pac-12 networks to watch those.
Yes. Yeah. Did you
so
say
it looks like the
email?
Yeah,
Sorry,
we got one email.
I was excited. I was like, yeah, email.
It's not even a question.
Oh well.
Brendan says he agrees with the attendance. Winning more games definitely wouldn't hurt, but we obviously see it only helps a little bit. He said one thing. It's a good point, and I think we kind of made this like, don't believe it's just a WSU problem. It's a West Coast fan base problem. Honestly, it's like been a problem throughout college football.
Yeah, it's not just on the West Coast right now. It's everybody is dealing with this question.
He also has some nice things about Zag fans. He's a Spokane Coug. He said our accurate of Zag fans could be any more accurate, or our depiction of Zag fans could be any more accurate. So yeah, thank you, Brendan. I appreciate you writing us a nice email. Any of you can write us an email. You can even send questions at podcast vs everyone, podcast versus everyone at gmail.com. And we like the questions, we do get them on Twitter if we ask, but it makes us feel even cooler if you send them to us via email. Jeff, I think like now we can, since I've already done one of the plugs, I guess, if you want to send a question on Twitter, that's fine. You could at me at the Craig Powers on Twitter, or at pod vs everyone, pod versus everyone on Twitter. That's Jeff. You can follow me on Instagram at Craig W. Powers. I post Coug stuff, especially when I go to Pullman. And then I already said the email. So if you're listening, please, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. And also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate that. Jeff, I guess with all that, I guess we're doing pretty good on time here. I guess that's it. That's all. So I'll just say, go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated.
Yeah, so you don't give up fucking game-losing home runs in the ALDS, Robbie Ray.